The main character, Carag, seems like an ordinary teenager at first glance, but behind his human appearance hides the essence of a puma. He is a shapeshifter, one of the few beings capable of changing form. The first part of the film is devoted to the deep destruction of his original world. Carag grew up in the wild, among rocks and forests, obeying only the instincts of his family. However, the call of the human world and his curiosity about another life lead to a catastrophic rupture. Carag's decision to leave his family in the forest and go to the humans becomes an act of betrayal of his own nature. The tragedy begins from the moment of his integration into human society. For our channel, it is important to emphasize how the education system and social norms begin to erase the wild personality within him. Carag is forced to hide his instincts, suppress his heightened senses, and play the role of an ordinary foster child in a family that does not even suspect his true essence. This is a classic destruction of identity. To survive in the new world, he must kill the old one within himself. But nature abhors a vacuum, and the suppressed instincts of the puma begin to break out in moments of stress, turning his life into a constant fear of exposure. The situation changes when Carag learns about the existence of Clearwater High, a private school for woodwalkers like himself. Here, destruction takes a different form. In school, Carag is faced with the fact that the world of shapeshifters is just as cruel and hierarchical as the human one. He is no longer the only one of his kind. He is part of a community where the strength of the beast determines your status. Meeting the school principal and the mysterious mentor Andrew Milling introduces an element of manipulation into the plot. Milling sees Carag not just as a student, but as a valuable asset, a powerful predator who can be used for his own purposes. The school is not only a refuge, but also a training camp. Here he is taught to control his transformation, but at the same time, ideas of the shapeshifter's superiority over ordinary people are planted in his mind. This is the beginning of ideological destruction. Carag, who strove so hard to be with humans, now hears that humans are merely weak prey. The conflict between his human upbringing and the awakening pride of the predator becomes the central nerve of the plot. He realizes that he is stuck between two worlds, and in neither of them can he be himself completely. Carag finds his first allies, Holly, a squirrel shifter, and Brandon, a bison. This strange coalition of predator and prey in the wild becomes the first challenge to Milling's system. They begin to realize that at Clearwater High, not everything is as smooth as it seems in the promotional brochures. The destruction of the illusion of safety is complete when Carag finds tracks in the forest that tell him his past life has not let him go, and his new life is a carefully constructed trap. Training at Clearwater High leads Carag to realize that his gift is not only freedom, but also a target for those who thirst for power. Here, the process of the destruction of moral landmarks unfolds. Andrew Milling, a wealthy and influential benefactor who is also a puma shifter, takes Carag under his wing. Milling plays the role of the perfect mentor, the father Carag lost when he left the forest. However, behind this fatherly concern lies cold calculation. Milling plans to use the shifter children to establish dominance over the human world, which, in his opinion, only destroys the planet. The destruction of Carag's personality in this phase occurs through the temptation of power. Milling instills in him the idea that he is the pinnacle of evolution, a predator who should not obey the laws of weak humans. Carag faces an internal conflict. His human foster family gave him love and compassion, but Milling offers him greatness and a return to true wild nature. This is a classic manipulation aimed at severing the hero's connection with his human side. Carag begins to notice that the school is divided into castes. Strong predators suppress weaker herbivore shifters, mirroring the worst traits of human society from which they supposedly tried to escape. Parallel to this, Carag starts his own investigation. Together with Holly and Brandon, he discovers that Milling is buying up land around the forest not for nature protection, but to prepare for a large-scale act of revenge. The destruction of the illusion of the noble leader is complete when Carag finds evidence of Milling's involvement in the disappearance of his forest family. It turns out that Carag's departure to the humans was not an accident. It was part of a long game designed to make him bitter and controllable. Now the hero understands that his mentor is the architect of his suffering, using his pain as fuel for his war. Relationships with friends in this part become the only anchor keeping Carag's personality from collapsing. Holly, with her unpredictable squirrel nature, and Brandon, whose bison strength is hidden behind a gentle character, represent the wrong shifters, those who refuse to submit to the dictate of power. Their friendship is an act of protest against the Clearwater High system. When Carag refuses to participate in the first punitive action against humans organized by Milling, he finally moves into the category of outcasts. The destruction of his social status at school happens instantly. From a golden boy and the director's protege, he turns into a traitor to his own species. Milling presents Carag with an ultimatum. Either he joins the Great Cleansing, or he becomes the first victim of the new era. At this moment, Carag for the first time performs a conscious transformation, not out of fear or hunger, but for the sake of protection. He accepts his puma essence but fills it with human values. The chapter ends with Carag and his friends being forced to flee the school into the same wild nature he once left, realizing that he is now being hunted by both sides, both humans and shifters. After escaping from Clearwater High, Carag and his few allies find themselves between two fires. Here, the final destruction of the concept of home occurs. The forest, which used to be a place of absolute freedom for Carag, is now full of Milling's patrols, and the human city has become a zone of mortal danger for him due to the provocations started by the shifters. The hero realizes that neutrality is no longer possible. Milling has begun implementing his plan to destabilize society, carrying out a series of attacks on human infrastructure and masking them as natural disasters. The main blow to Carag's psyche is the threat to his foster human family. Milling, a master of manipulation, understands that human attachments are Carag's Achilles' heel. When his foster parents' home comes under surveillance by predatory shifters, Carag is faced with the need to destroy his secret. To save those he loves, he is forced to reveal his true nature to them. This moment is shown not as a triumph of trust, but as a painful rupture. He sees fear in the eyes of the people who raised him. This emphasizes a key theme: the impossibility of fully merging two conflicting identities without destroying one of them. In search of the strength to confront Milling, Carag decides to turn to those he once betrayed, his original Puma family. This return to his roots turns into a deep psychological duel. His kin see him as a humanized, weak beast whose instincts have been dulled by comfort. The destruction of Carag's pride occurs through a series of trials in the wild, where he has to prove that his human mind has not weakened, but complemented his animal power. He manages to convince some of the wild shifters that Milling's fanaticism will lead to the extermination of all Woodwalkers, as humans in their anger will not distinguish between radicals and peaceful residents. In parallel, internal resistance grows at Clearwater High. Holly and Brandon use their unique abilities to create an underground network of informants among the students. We see the destruction of totalitarian control within the institution. Even Milling's most loyal supporters begin to doubt when they see that his methods are no different from the human cruelty he so despises. Carag coordinates with the underground, preparing a diversion to disrupt the final stage of Milling's plan, a massive attack during a major city holiday. Carag stands atop a cliff, looking at the city lights, realizing that tomorrow will either be the start of a new species war or the point of their painful reconciliation. He is no longer just a puma or a human. He is the bridge between them, risking collapse under the weight of responsibility. The chapter ends with a shot of Carag letting out his first truly fierce roar, heard in both the forest and the halls of Clearwater High, signaling the start of a rebellion against the tyranny of his own kind. The final act of the film turns into a large-scale clash on the border of two worlds. Milling begins his attack, seeking to provoke chaos that will force humans to respond with aggression, thereby justifying his holy war. Here, the destruction of his savior image occurs. In the heat of battle, Carag sees that Milling is ready to sacrifice his own students to achieve his goal. His ideology of species purity crumbles, revealing an ordinary thirst for power. For Carag, this is a moment of truth. He understands that evil has no species affiliation. It manifests equally in both human and beast. The climax duel between Carag and Milling in their puma forms becomes a metaphor for the hero's internal struggle. It is a battle between two paths: the path of hatred and isolation offered by Milling, and the path of integration chosen by Carag. In this duel, the destruction of physical superiority over moral superiority occurs. Although Milling is stronger and more experienced, Carag wins thanks to his human part cunning, compassion, and the support of friends. His alliance with Holly and Brandon proves that the unity of the diverse can crush any tyranny. After Milling's defeat, the most difficult phase begins: the destruction of the old world order. Clearwater High can no longer exist in its former form. Carag takes on the role of a leader who must rebuild the system. He insists that shifters should not hide or dominate, but must learn to coexist with humanity. This requires breaking down centuries-old barriers of fear on both sides. Carag becomes living proof that one can keep a wild heart while remaining a civilized being. The film's finale leaves a bittersweet aftertaste. Despite the victory, Carag realizes that perfect harmony is a utopia. His destruction of illusions is complete. He knows there will always be those who fear the other and those who want to exploit that fear. However, he finds peace in his duality. He no longer agonizes over whether he is a human or a puma. He is a bridge, a protector, and one who chose his own path, not one dictated by nature or a mentor. The chapter ends with a shot of Carag returning to his human family, but his gaze, fixed toward the forest, remains the gaze of a free predator. The film Woodwalkers is not just a teen fantasy about shapeshifters, but a large-scale study of the destruction of social and biological identity. For our channel, this project is valuable as an example of how a personality breaks under the pressure of choosing between instincts and imposed morality. Carag's journey begins with a voluntary rejection of his wild nature for the sake of integrating into the human world. This is an act of primary destruction. To become human, he must suppress his heightened senses, his scent, and his hunter instinct. The film clearly shows that any attempt to fully fit into an alien environment requires the amputation of part of one's own soul. Carag lives in a state of constant cognitive dissonance, where his true essence is considered a mistake that must be hidden. Andrew Milling acts as a classic architect of destruction. He uses Carag's sense of displacement to instill in him ideas of radical superiority. Milling offers a surrogate identity. We are the master race intended to fill the void in the teenager's soul. This is a dangerous moment of turning a gift into a weapon. For story arc cinema, it is important to emphasize, destruction here occurs through the temptation of power. Milling tries to destroy Carag's human morality, convincing him that compassion is a weakness unworthy of a predator. The moment when Carag is forced to reveal his essence to his foster family is a point of no return. The destruction of his normal life happens instantly. We see how fear in the eyes of his loved ones destroys years of built relationships. This highlights a tragic truth. For society, you always remain the other, no matter how hard you try to conform to its rules. This scene is a powerful metaphor for the social isolation experienced by anyone who does not fit into the standards of the system. The final battle proves that victory over the system is possible only through accepting one's complexity. Carag stops fighting himself and combines the logic of a human with the strength of a beast. This is an act of creation through the destruction of old dogmas. He destroys the hierarchy of Clearwater High, based on the right of the strong, and replaces it with a new model of coexistence. His refusal to kill Milling is the final break with the script imposed on him by nature and his mentor. Despite the happy ending, the film leaves the hero in a state of existential loneliness. Carag destroyed the barriers, but himself remained in between. He is too human for the forest and too wild for the city. For our channel, this story is a reminder that finding one's authentic self often requires the destruction of all cozy illusions about belonging to any group. With this, our breakdown of Woodwalkers is complete. We have seen how from the ruins of old worlds, a personality is born, capable of dictating its own rules even to nature itself. Subscribe to Story Arc Cinema. Give us a like if you believe that humanity is a choice, not a biological species, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Carag's place, stayed in the forest, or tried to change the human world from within? Thank you for watching. Do not let anyone limit your potential to the boundaries of a single species. See you in the next video.